Listen, I said it before, I'll say it again. Who you taking out?
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Base Coverage presented to you by this is the Athletes Forum Network. I'm your host, Jamal Clay. Thank you guys for tuning in. On today's episode, we're a little behind, but you know what? We're going to react anyway, and we're going to talk about this list put out by ELF Network to put out the top 50 lists of players in last year's ELF. So we're going to jump right into it. Again, we're a little behind, but again, I got some thoughts on the second wave, which is 40 to 31. So off the bat, we got DN James Brooks, Prague Lions, defensive back Mitchell Fedek, Stuttgart Surge, Dejan Owens, defensive back from the Cologne Centurions, Aslan Zetterberg, defensive tackle for the Stuttgart Surge, Luke Zaraka, quarterback from Milan, Adria Botea Moreno from Paris, Aaron Jackson, Robin Wilczek, both from Berlin, Reese Horn, and Zach Magic Man Edwards. That is your list, 40 to 31. Now let's talk about it a little bit. Starting with James Brooks, he was a bright spot in that Prague Lions defense. A defense, believe it or not, first half of the season actually played very well. But the story about Prague, it's already written. There's no need to necessarily dive into it. They recently are under new management. They just hired former defensive coordinator, most recent defensive coordinator, Dan Dish, to be their head coach. We'll see if James is coming back for a second year in ELF. Prague is a team that, you know, their import signing is going to be important because you gotta build that culture, you gotta build that competitiveness, you gotta bounce back from last year. So we'll see how that happens in regards to next year ELF. All right, we got a pair of cornerbacks. We got a pair of underrated cornerbacks, right? Mitchell Fedek and Dejan Owens, two very underrated cornerback. Both played well for their teams. Both was a big part in their pass defense. Mitch Fedek more of a boundary, hard hitting corner, who's not afraid to lay the boom and make his presence felt. Tall, big body type of dude, played well this year. And then we got Dejan Owens, more of a field corner, most of the time covering the number one receiver. He played well. And similar to, Jabri Regan, he was part of a defense that was a much better defense in the Cologne Centurions than usual. He was one of the bright spots in that secondary. And teams were after him, and he held up his side of the bargain. So shout out to Dejan Owens. Aslan Zetterberg obviously started with the Kings, then went to the Surge. A little bit of a mixed season for him. One of my favorites to watch on film. He's an absolute beast up front. So respect to him. We got a pair of quarterbacks. Luke Zaraka, Mr. Milan. He's going to be the Milan quarterback for years to come, or until he doesn't want to anymore. It's just as simple as that. Their offense, again, was a top 5 quarterback in the league statistically. He's able to score and put up with the best of them. Milan needs to fix their defense, and obviously that's been written, so there's no need to harp on that. But Luke, glad to see he made it on the list. Zach, big jump off. Obviously, he had a great year 2 with the Barcelona Dragons. Almost won MVP, record-breaking year. So, obviously it was a drop from 1 to 31. But ultimately, that Paris team came around the second half. The one thing with Zach, if he comes back, I hope he comes back because I like watching him. The one thing with Zach that I just want to see him not take so many sacks. Obviously, he's trying to do his thing back there, but I want to see him next year if he comes back, just not take so many sacks, maybe get the ball out quicker. But again, that's more than just him and stuff like that. All right, let's get to the pass catchers on this list. So Andrea Bote Moreno, tight end. Great tight end, no disrespect. I still think Florian Beerbaumer was the top tight end in the league, but I'm not gonna hammer that down. Andrea is a great player himself, but I think I would flip the two, in my opinion. All right, and then with the 3 receivers, again, we talked about it on the last one with Louis Geyer and Harlan Kofi, right? If you're gonna argue their spots, you gotta look to see who's ahead of them. And now we see, at least in this wave, we got Aaron Jackson, Robin Wilczek, Reese Horn. So my question again is, who are you taking out if you're going to replace somebody, right? it's hard. It's hard to do these lists. Aaron Jackson, one of the top receivers in the GFL a couple years ago, came to Berlin, performed. He was a great returner as well. Robin Wilczek, again, this is someone who, when he first got into ELF, started off slow, had a big second half, and all he did was just carry that into his third season. So shout out to Robin. And Reese Horn. Reese Horn is a receiver that doesn't get as much credit as he should. Doesn't get as much credit as he should. I respect his game. I respect his play. I think this wave probably so far, again, we're going to look to see what the other ones look like. But between this one and the first wave, probably the most accurate. Not too much changes. Again, I already said my piece on the tight end part, but not too much changes, at least I would take from the second wave. All right. Let's dive into the next wave.
Hard work, they don't know